Hi there, everybody. I'm John Muir Laws, and welcome to Bay Nature Talks. Today, we're going to be taking kind of a late afternoon ramble through the woods and kind of explore how I might investigate an environment like that in the pages of my nature journal. And I'm joined today by the executive director of Bay Nature Magazine, Regina Ridley. And so, Regina, would you like to say hi to folks?
Hi, everybody, and hi, Jack. It's really special to be here with you today. Thank you so much for doing this with Bay Nature. It's especially wonderful because this is our 20th year of publishing Bay Nature, and yay! And it's the next issue, our winter issue, is our 20th anniversary issue. And you've been contributing to Bay Nature with your nature artwork since the very beginning. So that's just makes it extra special that we're here today, and I'm really excited.
Yeah, this is gonna be fun. It doesn't feel like 20 years. No way, no way. But yeah, I remember when it was just getting off the ground, and the first issue was just a beautiful jewel, and everybody wondered if you guys could do it again, and then you did again, and then you keep doing it. Thank you all, you Bay Nature subscribers out there who help keep this thing going, and also thank you to all the people who donated to help support this workshop. It's a free event, but I know a number of people were able to make a donation to help us do this and to do other ones like it. So we really appreciate that. Today, we have kind of a small skeleton crew working in the background. And so if there are any technical issues, we don't have the bandwidth to solve them for you. So if something goes wrong with your connection, we're not going to be able to fix that for you, but we will be recording this. You notice it says recording over here. And you'll be able to see the recording of it. However, if you do have any questions or thoughts or comments, this is the Zoom webinar format, and what you can do is you see that over here, that little thing that says Q&A. You can click in there, and you can ask questions, and Regina is going to be feeding a number of those to me as the workshop goes along. So you can we'll be able to answer some of those questions. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to imagine sort of taking a walk out through the woods, and at an imaginary time, close to this, and sort of show you how I might use a journal to help me get more out of that experience. Whenever I go out in the woods, I try to carry some sort of a notebook with me. And this is where what I do is I walk along, and my general pattern is I'm looking for wonder or beauty. So if I see something on the wonder department, so these are the things that kind of make me go, right? I see something like, oh, that's weird. Like, what's up with that? So that's wonder, and mysteries will pull me in. So I love looking for things that I don't understand. And when I find those, I bust out my journal and I start taking all sorts of notes, and I'll show you how I do that. And the last is beauty. Another thing that I am looking around for is these beautiful moments in nature. And as I work at it more, what I'm trying to do is to get a lower and lower and lower threshold for what jumps out to me as beauty. So if there's a spectacular sunset with beams of light coming through and a murmuration of starlings working in front of that, you can go like, ooh, it's beautiful, right? But what I try to do is to kind of get a lower and lower threshold so I can see, like, oh my gosh, if you can see like the beauty in a decomposing raccoon, then you've really gone there. But it doesn't. You don't even have to kind of go like that far now. But so see if you can, just anytime you're hiking around and you can sort of stop and just sort of take a little beauty break and kind of look around. And like right now, actually wherever you are right now, if you can see a window, look out through that window. And what I want you to do is just notice something that is beautiful about what you're seeing. Like right now, I've got some yellow leaves on a tree against a gray sky that's also turning yellow with clouds. And that little moment is there's this little beautiful moment. So I try to kind of just look for these places that kind of make my heart go, ah. And to help me remember those, I record them in my journal, because stuff that I don't put in my journal, my brain's just going to forget. That's the way our brains work. You think like, oh, I'm going to remember this forever. Like, yeah, not so much. Try, you're lucky if you get the next 5 minutes, right? If you ever sort of sat down and thought to yourself like this, it's the most beautiful sunset I've ever seen. Oh, this is gorgeous. No, it's just, yeah, you forgot all the other ones. So because our brain doesn't have a way of automatically remembering wonder and beauty. It does that with trauma, but not wonder and beauty. So this is your brain on paper. And what you do is you find that wonder and beauty and you put it in here. And then that's going to be with you. That's going to be with you forever. Because once it goes down on your paper brain, that's a legitimate extension of your thinking and your cognitive processes and your memory. That's part of you and part of your thinking process. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bump over to a little webcam, and we're going to pretend we're walking around in the fields together, and I'm going to keep my eyes open, and we'll see what we notice. And I'm going to be recording it in my journal, and I hope that in the process sort of help show you a few things about how you can keep your own nature journal, a few little drawing tricks, and a few little kind of wonders of winter. Let's go there now. Here we are. Fortunately, I have my, got a good warm coat on. In winter, you want to dress warmly because if you stop down to sketch, you're gonna start to get a little bit chilly. So if you can insulate yourself from that, it's hard to pay attention to nature and sketch when your other kind of Maslow needs aren't met. So I keep myself all nice and warm. I find that sometimes if I bring a journal with me, I might carry it with me all day long and never bust it out. But if at the start of a hike, I put something down on a blank page, then it's really easy for me to follow that with more stuff. So as an example here, I'll show you kind of a good way of getting started. So let's say we're going out tomorrow afternoon. So it's December 10th. And here we are. What I might do is just write a big number 10 here in the corner. All right. And I'm going to write December below that. And that's in 2020. Wow. Where did this year go? So sometimes just having a little date written in the corner gets something on the page. And let's put in some weather with it. It's going to be fairly cloudy. It's cool. So I've got some information when it is, and it's late afternoon. That's called metadata. One more sort of piece of metadata that I will sometimes put in is here is a little map of the San Francisco Bay Area. Here's kind of crude San Francisco Bay. Here's the peninsula, and here's East Bay Hills. And I am hiking right here with a view out to Mount Diablo out here. All right, So wherever I am, I might write in here just the name of the place that I'm hiking, that and the little locator map. See, this doesn't take me very much time, but I'll tell you, if you have something like this on the page, then what happens is you say to yourself, right, I've already put something on the page, right? I better fill up that page with other stuff. And then you won't be leaving your journal in your backpack for the entire hike because you just busted it out right at the start. If you're in a place where there's a lot of green grass, you might paint this green. And this just invites you into the page. And also date stamps and georeferences your notes. So what I've done here is I've just taken my journal and I've turned whatever I get here into data. It's data because I've date stamped it and georeferenced it. Now, whatever I'm seeing is going to be tied to place and time. So scientifically, this is useful for me to put in, but also psychologically, it's really useful to put something like this on the corner of your page because then you're going to be getting your journal out. You want to follow this with more stuff. So I'm going to just head on down the trail and see what I find. And you've got all this real estate to kind of take your on your adventure. So we're not just going to be putting a little sketch in the middle of the page. We're going to be filling this page up with all sorts of kind of moments and observations of things. We're walking down the trail and we see a mushroom growing by the side of the trail. All right, so pushing up there, there's a little mushroom. It's actually sort of on the edge of a watered lawn. And so what I'm going to do is you kind of get down and there's an older mushroom and there's a younger one. What I'm going to do in my journal here is I am going to just draw a sketch of what I see. And I often will start these sketches rather lightly. Here I've got a little purple pencil and I'm pushing a little bit harder than I normally do. Because I want you able to see what some of these sort of starter lines look like. But here I've just sort of made a little kind of popsicle looking thing here. And that is going to help me sort of see that I have a kind of, this is how I'm kind of visualizing this mushroom. It is a inky cap, a shaggy inky cap. And once I've got that preliminary sketch on there, I can start to kind of add details on top of it. Now I can go, I've just got a ballpoint pen and I'm starting to draw my details on it. You see that I made some kind of contour lines around it like that. That's going to help me just sort of maintain the shapes and the angles on this. There's this little piece that's kind of flaking off here. And this little inky cap, see how I'm using that curved line there? Just sort of, so this is it's a fun little mushroom. It starts off as a column. And I can leave it just like that. I like to bring just a little watercolor kit with me. My brush is a fun one. I've got it's a brush that has the water inside the handle. And what I can do with that is I just give it a wipe on a little rag and the tip of my brush is clean. I can now draw in here just a little bit of a shadow on this side. I'm going to draw a little bit of shadow underneath this cap.
Jack, when you have a moment, I have a couple questions about supplies.
Sure. Drop them in. Ask me questions anytime. I can
Okay.
multitask.
Okay, great. The question was at the very beginning, what kind of brush or painting tool were you using? Carrie wants to know. And also Autumn wants to know about your favorite art supplies and what kind of pen you were using.
All right. Exactly which art supplies you choose to have, it's just sort of a matter of personal preference. Some people like to draw in pencil because you can erase with it. I get a little bit bothered by pencils because they smear, and I don't like that. So I do a lot of my stuff with a ballpoint pen. So this is just a ballpoint pen, and it has, so I don't waste as much sort of pen supplies. It's got a refillable cartridge on the inside there. Oh, now I can't get it back together. Oh, come on, you. And they're so easy to put back together. That's the nice thing about them. There we go. So I've got a little ballpoint pen. My paints that I use, I've got a little watercolor kit that I bring with me that can fold out. But my kind of critical supplies are this brush that has the water inside the handle. The other tool that I have is an old sock that I put on my wrist, because when I want to change colors, I just give my brush a squeeze and I wipe it on this, and then my brush is clean again.
Great, thank you.
Sure. This little inky cap here, the reason that they call it the inky cap, if you look right next to it there, you can see growing an inky cap that's a little bit older. They've got the very long stalk. And what's cool is that as they get older, they start to just sort of melt and turn into goo and drip. And that's with a black ink, black drippy ink. And so that's what that gives them this sort of inky cap name. And here is our little inky cap. And wow, it's so coming down here, a little kind of drip, a glob on the end here. Bloop. And when you're drawing things in nature, what I try to do is I don't have to get it, gloop by gloop 100% accurate. If I get something that generally represents what I am seeing, I'll be kind of paying attention to details that'll be that will be useful to me for identifying things, or sort of help me kind of notice about what's going on. And so, if I were really out there, what I'd probably do is take some of the black goo that's on the tips of these things. It turns just to this dense inky goo. I'd probably just dip my paintbrush in it and paint with that. Because the edges of this, they just turn to this black matty thing. So there we dip it into the inky cap itself. And there it is. Now, I've drawn a couple of pictures here. Pictures are one tool in my arsenal that I use for observing things. Another is writing in words. And if you just have drawings, then what happens is you tend to very quickly just get very critical of your own drawings. And you start thinking of it as, oh, I've got to make a whole bunch of of drawings. Really what I'm trying to do is use these drawings to help me observe. So what I find is fun to do is just to start writing all over my sketches. And when I do that, I'll start to sort of think about it in a different way. So I'm going to write cap CA. Oh dear, there's not enough room for it. P.
I have a question. And that is, a few people have asked, what are you drawing from? What are you looking at?
So here I'm just sort of thinking about, you know, I'm sitting there looking, I'd be in the field looking at the real mushroom. So a little bit earlier today, I looked at some photos of inky caps. And so they're kind of fresh in my mind. But if I were out there in nature, I would be the purpose of doing this is to get yourself to look a little bit more carefully at whatever is going on around you. And so I would be looking again and again at the object that has sort of caught my curiosity. So the answers to how it should look are all in the inky cap itself. I'm now going to draw a little line here, and I'm going to say it's wet and inky. Right, and then I'd take a little blotch like this and just take some of the ink itself, dip my brush in that again, and just say, like, you know, this is real ink. This actually happens to be watercolor because I don't have the inky cap in front of me. So sad. But, you know, you can, then I would have like a little sampler of the inky cap right there on my page. And this is shaggy. And tall and brittle. All right. And so when you start to kind of add these, this part is gray, but this young one was tan. Interesting little color change. So what I've got here is a combination of words and pictures. And those work together to help me remember the information that I'm seeing a little bit more vividly. Another thing that I can do is if I have a little measuring tape with me, I can say that this thing is 15 centimeters tall. So I can use words, pictures, and numbers as 3 different languages to kind of record and document the information that I see. And this is going to, I then will have a record, oh, I saw this in this place at this time. This observation is now connected with the metadata. And I'm becoming a better Bay Area naturalist because I'm starting to kind of put place together with organisms. And the more that I do that, the more I'm going to see, remember, and make meaning from the encounters with nature and the observations, the time out in the field that I will get.
Jack, I have a couple more questions about materials from Karen and Donna who want to know if you're using watercolor paper in your sketchbook.
No, this is just a very, very lightweight non-watercolor paper. If I'm doing stuff with big wet washes, your paper is going to go like that, right? You're going to have the wobbly page. But if you're not doing that, if I've just got some quick little bit of watercolor here and there, then I don't have to worry about that. And I'm not able to kind of lift out on it and do other kind of watercolor techniques, but I find that you just get more pages into a nature journal when you are not using that really thick watercolor paper. I'll just pause this for a moment and just sort of show you, here is my current journal. And, you can see that, I've got some washes on there. When you kind of hold it on the end, you can see that this part here that's been used is a little bit wobbly, but I kind of like that. It looks kind of lived in and loved in. So observations, you can put light washes of watercolor. Here getting a little bit heavier, that kind of wobbled the paper a little bit, but it's not that super wobbly.
Great. Another question from Lee is what non-art materials do you take with you?
Oh, well, I'm glad you asked, Lee, because I just happen to have my nature journaling kit right here behind me. So let me just pull some things out. I wouldn't go anywhere. Well, I would go anywhere. I'd go anywhere, but I love it when I've got my close focus binoculars with me. So this kind of binoculars allows me to look at all the distant birds like regular binoculars do, but they can also focus on a butterfly that's 1.5 feet away from my face. And so it allows you to look at honeybees and you can see their tongues going into flowers and things like that. So as a kind of real kind of get up and geek out naturalist, this is really fun for me because I can get right into the face of a spider and see the shape of its eyes using a pair of binoculars like this. And so that's fun. Here's a few other non-art supplies. I'll often carry a little headlamp with me because I'm kind of looking into hollow logs and all those other sorts of things. I keep a measuring tape with me so that I can measure. I keep a little hand lens with me for looking at even smaller things. I've got a small compass that doesn't work very well. So that probably is going to get bumped out. It's cool. If it pointed north all the time, that would be a lot better. The few other tools that I have, I've taken to sort of bringing around a larger compass because kind of orienting myself is useful. And this one also has an inclinometer on it that helps me sort of see angles and slopes. So that's useful. Another tool that I have is a goniometer. I use this to measure angles accurately as I'm looking at doing some sorts of investigations on sort of natural phenomena. I find that I really want to be able to measure angles of things. This allows me to do it, and also is then a larger ruler. And the metric system, so much more useful to us as naturalists than the inches. So those are a few of my favorite things.
Thanks, Jack. And I want to not hold you up too much longer, but one question, because a bunch of people have asked this, is like, could you say the name of the manufacturer of the binoculars again?
Oh, yeah. You can also, these are my personal favorite kind of binoculars. I love these. And so because I like these binoculars, I sell them on my website. So I don't recommend them because I sell them on my website. I sell them on my website because I recommend them. And they're the only kind of binoculars that I sell because I just love these things. So they're the Pentax Papilio 2s.
That's pretty clear. Thank you.
And the one that I recommend you get is not the 6.5 power, go for the 8.5 power. That's the only one that I sell on my website. So if you go to johnmuirlaws.com, you go to that store. If you buy from there, I make the margin instead of Jeff Bezos. Ooh.
That's great. Okay,
Yeah.
well, we have a bunch more questions, but why don't we pause on questions so that you can move forward with drawing?
Well, it's funny that you should mention questions, because that actually is part of my process. These are all observations. But if I can actually get myself curious about something, then that really, really helps me. So if I'm looking at these like this drippy goo stuff, why is that? So I write, does the goo help it, does the goo help it shed spores? So that's something I'd like to know about this. And so I'm going to draw a little arrow to the goo and put this in a little box here. And even put in a little question mark here. And draw my box around like that. All right. If I start asking questions and writing them on my pages, it's going to really help me get excited. On this, why this rough texture? Why shaggy texture? So I'm going to draw here. Why shaggy texture? Any question that I come up with, I want to put that in here right along with my observations. If I can get myself really curious about something, whatever I'm doing out there that day is going to be a lot more fun. So intentionally, as a naturalist, make yourself curious about things that you see, and then run around and document and record those questions in your nature journal. So now it's time to move on down the trail. So we're picking our things up, we're heading on out, and we keep looking around. And fortunately, you've got your close focus binoculars with you, because look over there at those birds right there by the edge of the brush. There's a big flock of birds poking around on the ground. So what you do is you try to sneak as close as you can. And as you get closer, you'll see that when you're getting closer, they're starting to change their behavior. It means you're starting to kind of freak them out. So you stop, you back off a little bit, you get out your binoculars, and you can look at them from there. Once they get used to you being there, you might actually be able to get a little bit closer, and then a little bit closer. Here's another trick you can do. If they're here and you walk straight towards them, you're going to freak them out. Right? So what you do if you want to get close to them is you make them think that you're going this way. So you walk this way. See, it gets you closer to them. And then you get your binoculars out. You kind of slow down. If you stop suddenly, you freak them out and they leave. Right? But you stop slowly. You pretend you're interested in something over here. They go like, oh, you don't care about us. We're cool. They go about their little bird business, and then you start watching with your binoculars, and you can start to draw them in your journal. So what I am going to do is I am going to try to make a sketch of these birds in my journal. So part of what I do in my downtime is I study bird anatomy, and that helps me be able to then draw the birds that I see in my journal. All right. And if you go to, every week I teach classes on how to draw and sketch in nature. I've got a bunch of classes out there on how to draw birds. So I won't be able to, in this lecture, kind of give you all my secrets and tricks on drawing birds. But do notice that what I'm starting with here is just kind of a rough shape, kind of getting the head shape attached into the body. If I can get that connection working well, then a lot of the rest of the bird drawing is going to fall into place. And so I will often, in my journal, just sort of start a light, loose sketch. And then that's going to be from where I'm going to build the rest of the drawing out. While I'm looking at a bird, whether I have my binoculars or not, I usually am saying out loud the details of what I see. So on this one, I can say it's got, yellow color right on its forehead, sharp pointed bill. Bill is dark on top, light on the bottom, slight line through the eye, paler underneath the eye, kind of a dark ear patch. And what I'll do is kind of just talk my way across this bird. And when I do that, the details of this bird are going to stick in my head longer and in a way that they wouldn't if I were just looking at it. If you just stare at the bird, you're going to find that when you look up to then maybe put some notes on your piece of paper, your mind is really blank. And you haven't been able to really remember any details about what you saw. But if you said those out loud, then what you'll find is that those things that you say out loud, your brain does a much better job of holding on to those. And understanding some bird anatomy really helps you be able to sketch it. So I teach a number of classes, and those are available for free on my website on how to kind of how to draw, how to understand the anatomy, how to get that down onto a little piece of paper. So I will put in sketches of what I see. And if while you're doing this, this bird is kind of up on the branch, if your bird suddenly moves, because birds like to do that, when they first are kind of up, once they get used to you, they'll kind of go back to their feeding. So this bird that was popped up on the branch, when you got a little bit too close, it drops down onto the grass again and starts feeding again. So what I would do is I would abandon this drawing, maybe make a few notes that this part was gold, that part was black. I'm gonna put a little abbreviation, BK, the first and the last letter of the color. Because if you put the first two letters of it, then black and blue become the same thing, green and gray. But if you first, when you're abbreviating colors, put the first and the last letter in. And so it's got a black on the top, and it sort of had a pink underside of the bill. And then the belly was tan. All right, so I can put little notes in to help me remember colors later on. But it hopped down onto the grass. I'm just going to draw kind of a little bit of ground with a bunch of birds hopping around, and they're holding some of them have their tails out. They seem to hold their tails flat. So I would talk my way through whatever I was seeing with those birds. And again, some pictures are nice, but flock of 20 birds at edge of coyote brush.
And Jack, I think we need to adjust your pad just a little bit. Needs to go up and left.
Is that good?
I think so, yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I get kind of focused down here and I'm not looking at the screen, so sorry if I...
Yeah, no, that's okay. I think it's good now.
So little sketches sort of showing the action here. No detail in these, but these kind of give you the sense of all these little kind of birds hopping around. It's going to help you remember that. And you don't have to finish any of the drawings that you start. You don't have to, but if you This one has a little bit of yellow in here, a little bit of yellow here. Yeah, you feel free to start a drawing and you don't have to finish it. If you do finish it, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine.
There's an interesting question from Farhat, and it is, do you find by observing nature and drawing it, you're helping to create a photographic memory in your mind, and from that, you're able to more easily pick out further unique features and moments in nature when you come across them?
That's a really great question. I do not have a photographic memory. And that's one reason why I keep these journals. But every time I draw something, I come up really in a concrete way against kind of what I thought I knew. And I find out again and again and again that what is really going on in nature is slightly different than my mental image of the way that it should be. And so what happens when I do that is that I will, with this time of watching the golden crown sparrows, I'm going to learn a few new details about them. And the next time that I'm out there, those details that I've really made more concrete by this sketching, those are going to be with me, and I'll be building on that sort of better template, better understanding of what this bird is all about. My memory is still not photographic, but it's getting better and better. And a big part of that is because when I now look at the bird, I don't have to memorize everything about the bird, because the last time I was out in the field, I noticed, detail X, Y, and Z. Those details are still with me. And now I can focus on A, B, and C, right? And so the old details that I've noticed, they're sticking with me in this chance to observe them. They are, like last time I might have got the idea that the golden crown sparrow, the gold is towards the front of the crown and bordered by sort of a darker area. This time I noticed that the area, what called the supraloral area here in front of the eye below that stripe is also yellow. And so I might put in like yellow below eye stripe. And I'll even sometimes put in exclamation points when I've just learned something new. When I've, get some detail that I haven't really picked up before. And I want this, I'm gonna even make that yellow because it's a golden crown sparrow, right? And just doing that is the amount of attention that this little moment just got is enough to really lock that detail into my long-term memory. So the part of your brain that is involved with attention is the same part of your brain that is involved with memory. So if I in this sketch here, pay more attention to something, I am then going to remember that much more vividly. So attention is the doorway to memory. The journaling is the tool of attention. Because if I just am looking at it, what I'll tend to do is just kind of go like, oh yeah, cool, golden crown sparrows. I know what those look like. It's so great to see them again back here. Hooray, it's wintertime. They've made their journey all the way down from Alaska, right? Yeah, these guys breed up in Alaska, and then they come down here and around the Bay Area. If you go out and you listen and you hear that little call, my lips are not wanting to whistle right now. Oh dear me. All right, you'll hear that and you go like, that's the sound of winter in the Bay Area because of the golden ground sparrows. They've all come back, and they're doing their little oh dear me thing. It's really cute.
So, a couple of questions. One is from Jigan and Donna about the ink, the white that you're using for highlighting details. If you can.
Oh yeah, check that out. That's this crazy, wonderful nature journaling trick. This is the Signo Uniball gel pen, and it's a white pen that allows you to draw little white details on a darker painted surface. And you can put in all sorts of cool things. Just to kind of give you some examples of, you want to have some fun with that. You know, in drawing this Hermit Thrush, I had lost part of the eye ring and got that gel pen out and just rebuilt my eye ring. And whoop, the eye ring came back. This one, I had forgotten to put in an eye ring around it, and I put in some little white around that, and that one got an eye ring back. Here on this pumpkin, it had little scratches on the side that had then grown into these little white raised scars. And I painted the whole thing orange and then drew over those with the white gel pen and then tinted them. So you can, let me show you where I did that again. You can draw, look at these little veins here. See those in the leaf? I do not have I've got a little bit of a tremor even in my hand. How did I get these lines? I didn't paint around them. I painted the leaf green. I then drew on that with a white gel pen, let it dry, tinted it with yellow green, and now I've got little yellow green veins on my leaf.
And so, if I can jump in also, that's great. But to ask you some more about birds, and the question was, what other winter birds might be good ones to draw for a beginning nature journalist?
So the ones that I really recommend you taking advantage of are whatever is being cooperative. Whatever is being cooperative. So wintertime is hermit thrush time, right? These little thrushes will pop up, and they're nice because they'll kind of move a little bit and then they'll stand still a little bit. And they'll move and then they'll stand still. And so they'll kind of take these little poses. And they're an overall brown bird with a spotty neck and a little bit of rusty in the tail there. It's cool. My dad taught me that in the summer, we have the Swainson's thrushes in, and in the winter, the hermit thrushes. And the way he taught me to remember it is that Swainson's in summer start with the letter S, and hermit and winter start with the letter H. Oh, sorry, no. Hermit, and my dad was kind of a classical scholar, and he said, of course you'll remember that because Hermes is the god of winter, right? And Hermes and hermit, right? So there you're going to remember it, hermit thrush. And so I always kind of keep those straight. So when I see these, I remember my dad kind of saying, of course you'll remember that because of Hermes. And so I do, and that's fun. We have white crowns, not white crowns, but yellow rumped warblers popping up. That's a really fun thing to look for in winter. This is the form of yellow rumped warbler which has the white throat, the myrtle, which is the more uncommon kind. Most of our yellow rumped warblers, they've got a spot of yellow on their back. I've got a bird book here somewhere. See if I can pull up a photograph, or not a photograph, but a little drawing of a yellow rumped warbler. But if you were to pick one bird to kind of add to, you're a new birder and you want to kind of get your sort of your feet on the ground with birding, I would suggest that this winter, that's what it is. This winter, you learn the yellow rumped warbler and the dark-eyed junco. So the yellow rumped warbler is this crazy little character here, it's got a yellow rump, right? And you'll see lots of ones that kind of be an overall brown bird with a yellow spot on its rump. It'll be in the trees, kind of foraging there, sometimes flying out, catching insects, or sometimes even coming down to the ground. These will forage in all sorts of different ways. I would get that bird under your belt and be able to go like, look, there's a yellow rumped warbler. And then you've got about half of the birds that you'll see identified. The other is the dark-eyed junco. You're hiking through the forest somewhere and a bird flies away from you and you see this little flick of white, whoops, there we go. Little flick of white tail feathers. The outer tail feathers are white. And you've just found yourself a junco. And you'll find these birds with a dark little hood. So look for these ones. A little dark hood. Those are really, really fun. Golden crowned sparrows, another fun sort of sign of kind of a winter thing. We only get these in wintertime. The juncos will be here year round, but the juncos are just very common. But yeah, see if you can find, look for these golden crowned sparrows in a flock at the edges of some bushes, and you'll find you'll have a good winter bird under your belt.
Thank you. And Jack's got about 5 more minutes and then we will wrap up. And I just want to let everybody know there's been some questions about websites and where to donate and materials. And we can answer some of that in the last couple of minutes. And we'll also send out a follow-up email with websites as well. So anyway, Jack, you got about maybe 5 more minutes and then we'll end.
All right. So I want to remember this day. I want to remember this place. I've been really zoomed in, right? And so another thing that you can do that's really fun is to zoom out. And so get out and kind of look out there across the landscape at the distant Mount Diablo. And you'll find that when you look at the landscape from a kind of more of a distant view, that the way you look around, the way you think about the place that you're in is different. And so I will often make what I call Landscapitos. Now the Landscapito is the landscape drawing that just is, it's instead of a big landscape, because we usually think of like, Bierstadt paintings and things like that, that the little landscape drawings, you can finish these fairly quickly. So let's say you only had a few more minutes in your talk left. Can you finish a landscape drawing in that time? Well, golly, yes, you can. And the same is true when you're out hiking. If you do a big landscape drawing, then you are going to be kind of committing to sort of sitting in that spot for a long time, right? But a small little landscape like this, it's an overcast day. Let's see how quickly we can kind of just get this in. So there's that big overcast sky. We have Diablo back there. My favorite mountains. I was just on Mount Diablo recently with folks from Save Mount Diablo, a wonderful kind of conservation organization that's doing lots of stuff to protect and preserve that big mountain. Things that are distant from you get less detail. The Mount Diablo back there, I'm just going to put it in as kind of a big shape. Maybe make it a little bit darker. And then as I come into the foreground here, I can add more value and color. and finally we get into these hills in front of us. They haven't really turned green yet. So they've still got a lot of their brown color in them. You find that just a little study like this, maybe all you need to help you remember being in this place.
That's amazing, Jack. Now I remember the day.
Yeah, this then becomes two things. One, it is a while you're there, journaling like this focuses your brain. And you will notice a lot more stuff because you're journaling like this, right? The second is, later on, journaling like this allows your memory to keep and hold so much more about what is going on. You'll look back at this and go like, oh yeah, I remember, all these details will come back. Because you were journaling, you noticed more in the moment. Because you are journaling, those kind of get rolled into the fabric of your long-term memory, which makes you a more grateful person, which makes you a better naturalist. So that is kind of my approach. And so what I want to encourage people to do is get yourself a little notebook, bring it on your next little expedition, and use some words, pictures, numbers, make some lists, document what you see. And so much of that experience is going to, and then just compare that hike, just as an experiment. Be a scientist yourself, right? Say, Jack says that if you do this, you're going to remember more and it's going to focus you more. Don't take my word for it. Go out and try it. Bring a little notebook with you. Fill it up with, they don't have to be pretty pictures. Any kind of pictures will do, right? And then what's going to happen is you'll come back home and say to yourself, well, golly, I remember this experience so much more vividly than I normally would. And then, well, if that's the case, maybe I should use this approach and technique other times I go out exploring. And it's an absolute game changer for your inner naturalist. All the old school naturalists kept notebooks, detailed notebooks of all their observations. If we want to think and observe like they do, maybe we should start behaving like them and keeping those journals ourselves.
Thank you, Jack. I think we should wrap up now. I'm so appreciative of you doing this with us. And it's always so inspirational to see what you do and think of doing it also. And I want to point everyone to johnmuirlaws.com. That's johnmuirlaws.com, which is an incredible resource for nature journaling with tons of free information and resources. And there are quite a few questions about supplies and materials that we didn't have time to answer. But I would think at your store there, if it's in your store, it's something that you recommend, and you can certainly find the binoculars there. But could you talk a little bit more about your website?
Oh, sure. Over a number of years now, I've been building a website to have any kind of resource that I think is useful to anybody who wants to kind of keep this kind of journaling. So yeah, there's a link there that says nature journaling, and you go under that, and here's suggested equipment, and there are hundreds of hours of free tutorials in video and print version that give you skills like, on how do you create a quick landscape? How do you draw birds? All those sorts of things. I've got video resources for those. I do have a store. I write books on how to do nature journaling. I've got books on how to do nature journaling. You can give it to yourself for the holidays or a friend. if you're interested, every week I teach 3 free online workshops where we take a different aspect of nature journaling and workshop. Every Tuesday at noon, I've got a 1-hour workshop called Ask Jack, where people can join and they bring up some question, like I'm having trouble drawing this. Most recently, folks said, I want to draw water drops. How do you draw water drops from rain and dew? So we spent an hour showing all sorts of tricks and techniques to make it look like there's drops of water all over the flowers and plants that you have. Every Wednesday is a free workshop for educators and teachers. And every Thursday is a more organized, planned workshop on some aspect of nature journaling. Tomorrow, for instance, we're going to be taking a look at how do you, as a nature journaler, sort of bring that with the skill of tracking. How do you record tracks and animal sign in your journals? And so we'll take a look at a number of strategies and techniques that you can use for that. Most everything there is free, and so you can check it out there. I've also started, I'm very excited, a new series. Every week I release now one 15-minute workshop on different sort of building the basic skills of nature journaling. And it's just started. So if you want to join us, I've got about 5 out so far. We're going to make a total of 40 short videos to build all your nature journaling skills. All of that's available. Most of what I have is free. There's also a store that supports me and my work, and you're welcome.
Okay, we probably should wrap up, Jack.
Well, I also want to just, in wrapping up, want to send a shout out to my dear friends at Bay Nature. Thank you so much for connecting all of us to the natural world through some of our best local artists and naturalists and photographers. If you're not already if you are a subscriber, thank you so much for subscribing. If you're not a subscriber, you should subscribe, because this is really cool. There's a lot of magazines, it's just like, you know, yeah, not so much. You can sort of say the same thing a bunch of different ways. But if there's like a new park, you'll find the map to it and a naturalist walkthrough in the next issue of Bay Nature. What is going on seasonally with the critters? There's Ask Naturalists, there's stewards sort of connecting and finding. There's lots of really great, useful resources in this. Comes out 4 times a year, and each one is an absolute jewel.
Yes, and you're the last page of every issue, which is really wonderful. Thank you.
Really
you're such a great ambassador for Bay Nature. Thank you very much. We had a couple questions about donating. The Bay Nature talks like this one are free. We'd suggest, if it works for you, a $20 donation, and you can always donate on the Bay Nature site, baynature.org. And johnmuirlaws.com also has a place where you can donate. So thank you for asking. And unless you have any final words, Jack, I just want to say thanks to everyone for logging in and learning more about nature journaling. And thank you to you, Jack.
Well, thank you, everybody, for being here with us. This was really, really fun. All these skills we've been looking at, they're skills that you can learn and develop. It's not a matter of having a gift, but it's skills that you can learn. You can become a better observer, a better naturalist, a better artist. All it takes is just spending some time, but that's time spent in nature, and nothing will build you into a better and happier person. So thank you very much. And thank you again, Bay Nature Magazine. You're a really big part of the cultural landscape for naturalists in the Bay Area and beyond. We really respect and appreciate what you do.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.